Hello everyone, my name is Havian and today I'll be talking to you about Sword Art Online Alicization Lycoris, and I'll be trying to figure out why I, and possibly all of you watching, should even care about it. Just so you know the direction I'm coming from in this video, I'm someone that mainly plays games for their gameplay, and so my videos tend to focus on that aspect of games. I pay attention to the stories in games if they're engaging and if the characters are well written. So as you can probably expect, I don't really play the Sword Art Online games for the story. But I will still mention a few story related things that I feel are important. And with that in mind, because of where the story in this game takes place, expect to see a few things that could potentially spoil the first season of the Alicization anime. And it's worth mentioning that all the information in this video is based on early pre-release versions of the game, so some of the things mentioned could change over time or in the final version. Alicization Lycoris is the next Sword Art Online game that will be releasing on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC. Some release dates have popped up on a few online retailers, but these appear to be placeholders since no official release date has been set. As far as I know, the reason for that is because the developers say they want more time to work on the game to make sure it's the best it can be. So currently, it's a case of when it's done, it's done. Long-time followers of the channel have probably noticed by now that I've been slowly losing interest in the Sword Art Online games, and over time I've been making videos for them less and less. I still play Fatal Bullet every now and then, but I've been waiting for that one game to just pull me back in. These days I find the Sword Art Online games fun to play in short bursts, but my interest in this series isn't as strong as it was in the past. I guess I was just burnt out after playing these games for years, and even though I lose interest in one thing and move on to another, there's always a chance for me to become interested again. I will say that I have been enjoying the current season of the anime a lot, so that's probably what motivated me to look into Alicization Lycoris again. It's probably not the best Sword Art Online game, but my favourite one so far has been the Vita version of Hollow Fragment. When it first released, I had just watched the original Sword Art Online anime, so I imported the English version of the game that released really early in China without really knowing too much about it. Yeah, I imported the version that had that translation. I used to be a big fan of MMOs when I was younger, with the first one being Final Fantasy XI. It was clunky, a lot of it didn't really make sense to someone that had never played an MMO before, and the game was really unforgiving. But I still loved it. The feeling you got from that game for discovering or learning something new, or progressing past something you didn't think you could, or meeting new people that could help you along, is why it's still one of my favourite gaming experiences. I doubt I'll ever go back to it these days, but it did help shape the type of games I'm into today. The Vita version of Hollow Fragment really reminded me of Final Fantasy XI, and because of that feeling of nostalgia, the game just drew me in. At the time I had no idea the developers actually took influences directly from Final Fantasy XI when making it, but the game had me hooked. Since then I've been following the Sword Art Online series to see if the games could reach the same level of enjoyment that I found in Hollow Fragment. People that are big fans of the anime in previous games are probably going to buy Alicization Lycoris no matter what, but for those of you that are like me that were interested in the games previously, but for one reason or another your interest in this series has faded, I'm going to share as much information as I can about the game to help us decide why we should care about Alicization Lycoris. Unlike the other mainline Sword Art Online games, Alicization Lycoris follows the story of the Alicization anime fairly closely up until the 24th episode. But instead of the game reaching the same conclusion as episode 24 of the anime, and then going into the War of Underworld storyline, the game branches off to tell its own original story. So even if you know what will happen in the anime and the light novel storyline, the game will still be a new experience for you. Even though Alicization Lycoris starts off by retelling the first season of the Alicization anime, it does have a few differences from the anime. Certain scenes won't be shown in the same way as they were in the anime for obvious reasons, but since those scenes are integral to the story, the context of it will still be there. The main reason for this was because BANDAI Namco wanted to keep the game under a SAO-A rating, which is for ages 17 and above, since if certain characters and scenes were shown in the game in exactly the same way as they were in the anime, that would have bumped up the age rating. A new addition to Alicization Lycoris is the introduction of an original playable character called Medina Ortinanos, and she plays a major role within the story of the game. Medina is the 9th head of the Ortinanos family, and she's on a mission to grow stronger and clear her family's name. She's a stubborn character that doesn't often show her true feelings to others, and she tends to put up walls around herself. Kirito manages to get past those walls, and he gets to see a side of her that she doesn't usually show to other people. Which is something that probably shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that's familiar with the Sword Art Online series. Other characters that have been shown as playable in the game so far are Kirito, Yu-Gi-Oh, Alice and Asuna. Ronnie and Tisei also seem to be playable based on some screenshots that have been released, but I haven't seen any gameplay of them being showcased by the developers yet. And according to some artwork that was shown at a recent event, Sinon and Lifa may be making a return to the game as well. According to an interview, the game series producer mentioned that certain characters wouldn't be making an appearance in Alicization Lycoris, which makes sense considering how limited the access to Project Alicization is. But personally, I wouldn't mind if they left any of the other characters out, if the end result was a good story. Even though the mainline Sword Art Online games have had character creation or character customization systems, none of them have been quite as robust or as important to the story as the one in Fatal Bullet. When the producer was questioned about character creation in an interview, he mentioned that this is a game that focuses on Kirito, and noted that the absence of character creation still hasn't been confirmed. So even if they did add character creation, my guess is that you would probably be able to create a student from the Swordcraft Academy, and your character would add no actual value to the main story, and would only really be there to fill a party slot or for use in a multiplayer mode if they decide to add it. But with that being said, don't expect any character creation or multiplayer modes as of right now. Multiplayer modes were always one of the main things I enjoyed about the Sword Art Online games, and ever since I started putting less time into traditional MMOs, I'd fill that gaming void with multiplayer action games and RPGs. Games like Monster Hunter, God Eater, Tokiden, Freedom Wars, and especially the multiplayer Phantasy Star games. And I always hoped that the multiplayer modes in the Sword Art Online games would come close to the same level of enjoyment that could be found in those games. But the multiplayer side of the Sword Art Online games is pretty shallow for the most part, and it felt like it was just there to tick a box. The multiplayer modes do seem to be improving over time though, so hopefully if they do decide to add a multiplayer mode to Alicization Lycoris, things will take another step for the better. The worlds within the Ikuria developed Sword Art Online games seem to be getting larger and more expansive with each game, and based on what they've shown so far, that trend seems to be continuing with Alicization Lycoris. The world is set to include areas that were not shown within the anime, and from the looks of things it seems like they'll flesh out areas that were shown but didn't really get too much screen time, like being able to talk to citizens within Ruli's village, visit their shops, and take on their quests. Based on the info that's been released so far, I've noticed that there are 3 types of quests that you'll be able to do in the game: main quests, side quests, and wrath quests. From what I can tell, the main quests seem to be there to progress the main storyline. Side quests seem to be requests that you can get to do things like gather certain items or defeat certain enemies, and wrath quests appear to be challenges that are located in various places within the world. These quests appear to unlock or strengthen abilities once you complete the objective. I'm not sure how many of these quests will be available in the game or if they're just mainly there for tutorials, but I think it would be interesting to have certain abilities unlock after you've completed a quest or a challenge. But I'll have to wait until we get more information before I understand how all of this is going to work. When you complete a quest, you're rewarded with experience points, money, and you'll also gain points towards system control and object control. I assume system control will have an influence on your sacred arts or magic abilities, and object control will most likely play a role in the weapons and equipment you can use. As of right now, there hasn't been much talk about how the character progression systems will work in this game. But if the previous games are anything to go by, we can probably expect there to be a fairly deep character progression and customization system in place for people that enjoy grinding. Combat in Alicization Lycoris seems similar to Hollow Realization at first glance, but it does seem to have a few major differences. When they first revealed gameplay, we were shown a much closer camera angle compared to the previous games during combat. It appeared to have much more of a focus on action, and blocking, evading, and parrying seemed to play an important role in the combat system. The earlier gameplay made the battles in Alicization Lycoris seem much more intimate and with a focus on fighting solo or in a pair. Having a partner in battle still seems to have the same purpose as it did in the previous games, but eventually more characters were introduced and we were shown that up to 4 characters can be in a party at once. The gameplay in Alicization Lycoris seems to borrow from the gameplay systems that were introduced in the previous Sword Art Online games, but implemented in a way that makes sense for the world they're in. Normal attacks will be used to build a resource called SP, and SP can then be used to pull off your sword skills on an enemy. Sword skills are special attacks that seem to have more of a purpose in Alicization Lycoris compared to the previous games. Certain sword skills can be used to launch enemies into the air when they're staggered. Others can guard break shielded enemies, or even appear to increase the amount of time you can juggle them in the air. Along with sword skills, you can use combat skills that seem to have a cooldown period after use. Combat skills can be used to heal your character, taunt enemies, recover SP, increase attack power, or stun the enemy. I assume there'll be more skills that can be unlocked, but these are the ones that have been shown so far. In Hollow Fragment and Hollow Realization, you had the freedom to use a wide range of skills and buffs on your characters. I assume the intention was to give players more freedom to come up with interesting builds, but because of the way it was designed, it made it very easy to create incredibly strong characters after unlocking and stacking certain abilities. Things may be different this time around, since it seems like you can only have 4 combat skills and 4 sword skills active at a time. Apparently they want to cut down on the amount of buff stacking that people had to make use of in the previous games, and this approach might make the combat seem more restrictive at first glance, but there does seem to be flexibility in other places, since sword skills and sacred arts can be used in creative ways to form your own combos. Sacred arts are pretty much what you'll call magic in most other games, and it's separated into 8 different elements. These sacred arts can be charged up and then stored for use at a later time, but depending on the level of the charge, the effect of the sacred art will be different. For example, a level 1 ice art may fire out an icy thorn directly in front of you, but a level 2 charge will do an area attack around your character instead. Sacred arts can also be used during sword skills. This will cancel the sword skill into a sacred art, which you can then follow up with another attack or sword skill to continue a combo. So it's possible to do things like launch an enemy into the air with a sword skill, then fire off a sacred art while they're in mid-air and then continue to juggle them with attacks. So it does feel like you can be a bit more creative with the combos you make in this game. Along with sword skills and sacred arts, you can also use super arts and finishing arts while in combat. While fighting, the arts gauge will charge, and while I'm not too sure exactly what actions charge it, I've noticed that it seems to charge faster when you do things like perfectly dodge an enemy's attack. When it's charged, you can choose to use super arts, which will drain the arts gauge continuously so you can use sword skills without consuming SP, which should let you make longer skill connect combos. Or you can use finish arts, which I assume is the big cinematic attack that consumes the full gauge for one powerful hit. Your party members can also be used to increase how effective you are while in battle. You can be a bit more strategic and freeze time, so you can give yourself time to think about your current situation and plan what to do next. During this time you can prepare your party members' sword skills and battle skills, and give them instructions or set up skill chains. The Sword Art Online games usually have a wide range of weapons you can choose from. So far it seems like we've only been shown 3 different weapon types, but only 2 have been officially announced so far: one-handed swords and katanas. One-handed sword is a weapon type that's used by most of the characters that have been revealed so far. It has rapid attacks and it's easy to switch between attacking and defending with it. And the katana is a two-handed weapon that's used by Medina. It specializes in dodging and counter-attacking, along with chaining sword skills together. I don't think rapier has been officially announced yet, but it does seem like that will be Asuna's weapon of choice in this game, which is to be expected. All of the one-handed sword users have the same normal attack animations, but her attacks focus on rapid thrusting movements and have their own set of sword skills, so it's safe to assume that she's using her rapier skills. And based on the artwork that was shown of Sinon, we can assume that she's going to have a bow in this game, but we're going to have to wait until they actually reveal her properly before we know for sure. Currently, Alicization Lycoris hasn't been announced for the Nintendo Switch, but they are still interested in supporting it. Since the development team is focusing on other platforms that have more power than the Switch, they're having issues with memory shortages, so a Switch version is not something they can do at the moment. It's been said that the reason behind the memory shortages is because the areas are larger than those in the previous Sword Art Online games, and the characters have a higher polygon count. So in order to get the game to fit on the Switch, they would need to make some adjustments and reductions to the polygon count, and that's something that will take some time. They mentioned that they do care about the Switch users that would want to play the game, but nothing has been decided yet. I have to admit, I wasn't really interested in Alicization Lycoris at first, since I've been pretty burnt out with the Sword Art Online games, which is probably obvious since I haven't really talked about it much. But now that I've actually looked over all the info that's currently available about the game, I can't say that I'm completely sold on it yet, but I'm definitely interested enough to keep track of it and at least try it when the opportunity arises. Digging into all the information about a game helps me find out if it's worth at least paying attention to. So these videos don't just help me share information with you all, they help me decide if a game's worth trying out at some point. So expect more of these videos for other games in the near future. But in the meantime, if you have any recommendation for other upcoming games you think I should look into, or if you have any thoughts on Alicization Lycoris, let me know in the comments section below. So, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave it a like, and if you want to see more videos from me, then subscribe to the channel and click the bell to receive notifications. If you want to keep track of what I'm doing, then follow me on social media, or join the community Discord. The links to everywhere you can find me will be in the description. I'll be making some new videos very soon, but until I make those videos, I'll see you all later.